Welcome to the Stumbling Forward podcast. Progress isn't always linear, and it's rarely perfect, but it gets us where we need to be. I'm your host, Erika Taylor-Beck, the founder of Authentic Foundations, a business dedicated to creating online courses and one-on-one coaching to improve the way that we view and do leadership. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stumbling Forward. I'm Erika, and today I have the opportunity of talking with Laura Rippeon. Laura, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here and chatting with you today. So, looking forward to this.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to have you. So, would you like to share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and just who's Laura?
Okay, so I wear a few different hats, but I am located here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I have my own mental health private practice. I work a lot with stressed out and overwhelmed women who are experiencing anxiety, and most recently seeing a whole lot of ADHD in my clients. When I am not in my therapy business, I also have a coaching business where I work with introverted therapists and other wellness practitioners who are small business owners. And I really enjoy helping them as introverts work through their marketing and mindset and getting visible and showing up in different ways. So that's a lot of fun. And then when I'm not doing those things, I have another side hustle gig that I do with two business friends, with Jenna and Samantha. And we basically go around areas here in the Carolinas, and each of us are therapists. Each of us also have coaching businesses and other things that we do. And so we like to combine these things and create events for other wellness small business owners that focus a little bit on business stuff and a little bit on self-care things, because we're not always the best at doing the self-care as business owners, but those of us who are helpers and healers, a lot of times we're putting everybody else first. So it's kind of nice to be able to help out our community and do that for them too. So when I'm not doing all of that, I'm a dog mom. I have three French bulldogs. I live here at the beach. I enjoy going out to restaurants and trying new coffee spots and things like that. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
When do you have time to sleep?
Very good question.
Like I'm trying to squeeze that into my calendar because you're like, if I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. When I'm not doing
Yeah.
that, I'm also. And so I was like, wow, there's not a lot of free time, and that's
Yeah. Yeah. I go through my day, and at the end of the day, you will most likely find me with my laptop. I might be cozied up in bed. I know that's kind of a no-no, and sometimes we talk about that with clients, having good boundaries. But you know what? I will sit there and I will turn the TV on and watch a show while doing a note or something, and it's just a nice wind down for me. So, yeah.
if it's something that helps to recharge you, I don't think it's bad. Now, if you're doing it because you're trying to squeeze time
Mm,
out of the day and this is the only
hmm.
time I can do
That's a
that,
lot.
not good.
Oh,
But if you're, I'm just gonna wind
burnout.
down, sit like a shrimp, watch my computer and my TV. That's what I know. When I'm like in my shrimp mode, that's when I'm probably overly comfortable and I have to remember about
Yes.
posture and
Yes.
aging.
Yeah.
But that's
Yes.
good.
Yes, I love that. I've never heard that shrimp mode. That's a good one. But
So every
yes.
time I see the little shrimp emoji, I chuckle because that's literally when I'm on the couch. I have my legs up and I'm all forward.
Yes.
Okay, no, spread out a little bit, stretch your shoulders.
Yes. Absolutely, right? Good
So
reminder.
you mentioned working with stressed out women, and I was like, well, that's 80% of women, so you
Yeah.
probably have a full book there, but
Yeah.
also helping with coaching.
Yes.
How did you get into all of this? I'm sure this was not something that you were in elementary school thinking, I'm going to help stressed out women and also small business owners. So how did this all come about?
Yeah. So it really kind of started when I was younger. I'm like, even thinking back to like when I was little, like I want to like be a marine biologist, like do things with animals. I want to be a teacher, help out kids, right? Like so I knew I was kind of like always in sort of some way or realm, like in some helping profession. As I got older, I went to school for social work for my undergrad and my master's degree. But when I was in undergrad, I was at a nonprofit for victims of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And I had a whole wide variety of things that I did there. And one of the things that I really enjoyed was being in the community, doing some education, like doing some of the marketing things behind the scenes. I really like doing the behind the scenes things. And I noticed that it was a struggle for me to really really get in and connect one-on-one with some of the clients that were at the shelter that I was at. And not because I didn't necessarily like it, but like these other things just really like interest me more. So I gravitated to that. Honestly speaking, when it came around time to doing some reviews for the semester, my supervisor was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. You are in danger of like not passing because like you're not doing one core thing. And I was like, okay, I gotta get it together. And we talked about this and I told her where my interests were, and that's why I gravitated to that. And she was like, that's great, but if that's what you want to do as you progress in your career, one of the pieces of advice that she gave me was you have to be able to work one on one with these people and understand what is going on for them at a more micro level so that you can do the bigger picture things. And that has always stuck with me. I clearly I passed. Went on to grad school. And when I was in grad school, I went straight out of undergrad and into grad school. And they make you pick, I did an advanced standing program. So I'm essentially jumping into my second year of grad school coming in. And so they were like, all right, you got to choose. You either need to go the micro level or what they call the macro level, which is going to be the more community based, bigger things. And I was looking for jobs and I was like, I really don't want to do individual therapy stuff. And what she said had just resonated. It was always back there, that little nugget. And to this day, that nugget is still always back there. But I was like, okay, one, I'm going to have these school loans. I got to do something. I need to have a job.
Mm.
And everything I'm finding is therapy based. But I also remembered what she told me. And I know that I don't want to do the therapy route and I would rather be doing other things, but I also know that this is going to serve a purpose to wherever it is that I want to go after I shift out of that. So I went that route and graduated, and I've done a bunch of things from community-based things, again with nonprofits, at a group practice, and then I'm originally from Maryland. And so when I left the Maryland area in 2019, came down here to North Carolina and I was like, well, just go work in another group practice. And I was like, no, I can do this myself. Why not move and start a business all at the same time? Why, right? Like, why not? Why not? So that's what we did. And it was a wild ride because then not long after that, COVID happened. Oh, I knew that like after I kind of like settled in and like learned the ropes, I really enjoyed the back end of things. And not that I don't enjoy doing therapy, and I love my clients, but I really enjoyed the back end of things. And what ended up happening is that I found myself kind of like in burnout mode. Like, and I didn't necessarily at first recognize it in that sort of way. But essentially that's what it was. Um, I had one of those moments of, I'm gonna burn it all down. And I was like, Laura, you can't burn it all down. But what you do need to do is take a step back and find out like what needs to change. The population you're working with, like, does that need to change? What are you enjoying about your day? What are you not enjoying about your day? Like those sorts of things. And I did a journaling exercise. That was really helpful. And I basically came away from that with one, I needed to like narrow down a little bit more with the type of clients that I was seeing, the type of work that I was doing. But then two, I needed to bring in a little something else. I needed to diversify a little bit. And how can I do that? Well, I really enjoy the back end of things. And I'm an introverted person. And if I can build a successful, sustainable business doing what I'm doing and not be out here on Instagram and social media, dancing to the trends and everything else to build a business. And I know what has worked for me. Why can I not share that and help other people who are also quite introverted build their business? And so after that, I put things in motion to start moving towards that. And now here I am.
Ta-da! Ta-da!
Just like that.
Just like that. It's all it took.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot that you talked about in there. I love that you mentioned the burnout piece because I think you were probably the third person in the last couple of weeks that I've talked to that said at one point I wanted to burn it all to the ground. Literally those words. And
Yeah.
so when you said that, I kind of chuckled because it's a very common feeling that
Yeah.
people don't always share and talk about.
Hmm.
Again, we always see the people's
Hmm.
success of, their Stripe
Hmm.
notifications and all the money that they're making and
Yeah.
my client did X, Y, and Z, and so I'm amazing. But no one
Hmm.
talks about, I really thought about just scrapping the whole thing and going back to a 9 to 5 or whatever that might look like. And I think
Hmm.
it's really important to share, that even successful business owners still have some days or some moments when it's just overwhelming because there
Yeah.
is a lot that goes into it that people don't always see.
Oh
So thank you
gosh.
for sharing that because, again, I
Yeah.
think people will relate and think, okay, thank God it's not just me.
Hmm.
This is a common thing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I also really like that you talked about being an introvert because I'm also very introverted
Mm.
and also a really bad dancer. So even if I wanted to do TikTok trends, I can't follow
No.
any kind of like step aerobics class or dance class. I
No.
can't follow what they're doing in real time, especially if
No.
they're facing me and they're move to your left, but they're going to my
Mm.
right, and I get confused because of that. So I'm not
No.
going to make any money dancing on TikTok unless it's because it goes viral for being that bad. And that's maybe it's worth it. Maybe I should try that, but not something I really want to do. So it's nice to know that you
No.
can build a
Yes.
successful business in
Hmm.
a more
Hmm.
natural and aligned way that doesn't put you out and making you feel very uncomfortable and inauthentic, because that I think is what turns
Hmm.
people off from it, is feeling like you have to be somebody totally different to be
Yeah.
successful, and you really don't. So that's nice to know that.
Yeah.
And also thanks for sharing your story about here's this really core
Yeah.
piece of what I do that I wasn't enjoying and almost failed because I didn't want to do it. Because I think it's
Hmm.
it's nice so that you like doing the events and the group
Hmm.
types of things, because I think a lot of
Yeah.
folks tend to think of it as only one-on-one, and it doesn't have to be. And so that's nice too, to have that
Hmm.
variety, knowing that you can do either one, but just having that variety I think is really helpful. So
Yeah.
as a business owner and kind of as a coach, you mentioned working with typically kind of more women who are also working in therapy, maybe starting a business on the side. Do you have non-therapy type clients that are just random, like I'm just a leadership coach? Do you
Oh.
have kind of
Oh.
non-therapy owners that are doing business as well?
Oh yeah. So I would probably say that like my therapy caseload is probably I have a few entrepreneurs because I do market to that, but I see a lot of like teachers.
Yeah.
I see a lot of like corporate who are also like dealing with burnout and things. So it's really like across the board. But like I tend to the overachievers, the high achievers, the people pleasers, that's kind of like what, yeah, right, that's kind of what is my jam, and I love working because I'll put this out there. Like a lot of times, the people that we tend to work with are really reflections of ourselves. And so I would totally put myself in that category. They're my jam, and I get them. So it's across the board, but a lot of helpers, and a lot of corporate who are it's sucking the soul out of me. And I'm like, yeah, we do a lot of values work.
Well, you
Hmm.
mentioned burnout, and that is something that we're seeing
Hmm.
a lot. That's why I quit my corporate job last year, and we're seeing a lot of folks that are running into that.
Yeah.
Is it that it's more prevalent, or is
Hmm.
it that people are starting to recognize it for what it is? And maybe it's always been this high, but we're just really starting to acknowledge this is not how it's supposed to be. And
Hmm.
let's address that because, yes, this has been like this for decades, but we're going to say no and put some boundaries in place? Or is this something that's
Hmm.
just really picking up all of a sudden that maybe we weren't dealing
Hmm.
with before?
I think it's probably a few things. I think there's a more of an awareness, and I think that it's being talked about more, so people are coming forward more. I also think that it's looking at our generation and our parents, most likely, and grandparents. People stayed at their jobs a lot longer. There wasn't a whole lot of bouncing around, and so sometimes I think some of us, not all, but some of us see that and like the values that have come down the pike and instilled from our family and whatnot, right? Hard work. I'm showing up every day. I'm not over here like talking about work-life balance and I'm just grinding it out and doing the thing. Your parents and grandparents were probably not talking about I'm burnt out and whatnot. So I think
Mm-mm.
there's a couple different things probably influencing this. And now we are over here saying, no, it
Mhm.
is like sucking the life out of me. I want to prioritize my family, my loved ones. I want to travel, right? I want to do XYZ. I want to go volunteer with the animals, whatever it is. What is giving me life? It is not this thing over here. And I'm having terrible boundaries because my boss is calling me at 7 in the morning, telling me I need XYZ from you, or, staying late. And I think people are just recognizing more that that's not okay with them. And that's not the type of life that they want to lead. And so there's so much that's out of alignment. And so it's part of the work that we do together.
And I appreciate that because that's literally the point that I'd gotten to. And like you said, it's not something that was ever really modeled for us growing up. And I think we're both millennials. And so I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my dad worked for 40 something years at a steel mill. And it was a tough job. And he went
Yeah.
there, worked different shifts for my entire childhood. And
Mm-hmm.
never really complained about it, just kind of did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that we saw as you go, you work somewhere, you work there for decades and you
Mm-hmm.
retire and yay. And that's not the
Yep.
case anymore. Actually, especially in technology, I've seen and heard that people tend to respect your resume a little bit more when you move every few
Mm-hmm.
years because you're getting new skills, you're working with new
Yeah.
tools and systems versus I've been at this company for 20 years and they're like, cool, you've been working with the same thing for a
Yeah.
decade. It feels a little bit outdated because technology
Mm-hmm.
changes so rapidly. But I
Yes.
got to a point where I was burned out, and I remember thinking, get up, you do two days on a weekend, you try to
Mm-hmm.
scramble and get all your social time and your housework and stuff done, and then during the,
Yeah.
the week, commuting into the office and working at home and
Mm-hmm.
doing life and then go to bed, you get up, you work, you do your evening stuff, you go to bed, you get up. And I'm like,
Rinse
there
and
has to be
repeat.
more to the world and to life than this. Like, why did we settle for this? For 40
Yeah.
plus years, you work at least eight
Mm-hmm.
hours a day. You might get
Mm-hmm.
weekends if you're lucky, and then you retire. You might have a good decade or two if you're lucky,
Mm-hmm.
and then you die. But by the time that you retire, you're a little older, you're tired, maybe you're ill and have something that you can't travel. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this can't be it. And that was the feeling
Mm-hmm.
that really bothered me for a while is even though I love what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing, there has to be more than this.
Yeah.
I quit and was just winging my life for a while, volunteered with animals like you had said.
Yeah.
I did some volunteering with the shelters and
Yeah.
rescues
Yeah.
and then I got back into coaching because I missed what I was doing. So how are you helping people who are having these I thought it was a midlife crisis. I'm glad that it wasn't. I mean, I guess some people
Mm-hmm.
might call it that, but it was more of a hey, this is bullshit and I don't want to do this anymore the way I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are hitting that. So how are you
Mm-hmm.
helping those folks that are saying no more corporate or the man, I'm doing what I want to do now?
Yeah, exactly. Um, it's a lot of work around boundaries. It's a lot of work around figuring out what your values are, and how do you lean into those values. And obviously, not everybody's situation is going to be, I can just up and quit. So, honoring that too, and then what needs to happen. If that's not the change that can be made, which is totally fine, what needs to happen? Does that mean we need to figure out some better boundaries for you? Does that mean there needs to be some sort of accommodations? Does that mean that maybe we talk about how to shift your schedule so that it works better with your energy levels? It might look very different. So that's the part that we really work through. And sometimes there's a lot of change is hard and there can be resistance to that change. And so there's also a lot of mindset work that goes into this too. It's this all encompassing piece because for so long, for a lot of folks, it's I do what I'm told. My boss says this, I do this. My parents told me to do this, I do this, right? Sometimes it's also being open and curious and leaning into that uncomfortable. And it's a whole process. And I will also give clients that assignment that I gave myself when I was at that place of I'm just burning it down, a journaling exercise. And this is not original by any means. I got this from another podcast that I listened to. The exercise itself was 30-day exercise. So days 1 through 29, you answer the same three questions. What did I like about my day? What did I not like about my day? And what did I learn about myself today? And these might be big things, but they also might be like this morning I sat down and had my favorite cup of coffee, or I had to answer the phone today 5 times. That was probably mine. Right, exactly. And then on day 30, you go back through and review days 1 through 29. And it's what did I enjoy this month? What did I not enjoy this month? What did I learn about myself this month? And it was really reflective. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's really about the values and the mindset and boundaries work. It's a lot of that.
Yeah, that B word is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Two things with that. One, the awareness. I think we get so
Mm-hmm.
put on autopilot that
Mm-hmm.
we tune out us. Like you said, I don't love talking on the phone. I don't love answering the phone, especially if I don't know who it is. And so I don't want to do that. but just but I know that about myself. But if there's some things that you don't realize that you don't enjoy because you just have to do them and so you're like, oh, this is just part of my
Yeah.
life. I got to do this thing. But when
Mm-hmm.
you go back and look and say, here's what I love about what I'm doing. Oh, I didn't realize that
Mm-hmm.
really lit me up so much. Or I wrote that 6 times in 10
Mm-hmm.
days. Or here's what I really have been dreading. I think it's really eye-opening sometimes to do that self-awareness and say, shoot,
Mm-hmm.
I have been tuning that out, or my brain is so busy that I'm not catching on to intuition and other little signals that my body is giving me that this makes me happy or
Mm-hmm.
this makes me want to poke my eyes out. And the B word, boundaries, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think we're really taught. And I love when I hear about people now who have small children who teach them how to set boundaries because it wasn't something that we were taught. And now as an adult, I'm, 41, I'm trying to figure out how to set better boundaries with things,
Mm-hmm.
but I find that the hardest boundaries I have to set are with myself because I
Yep.
don't always honor those. Even if it's blocking off time on my calendar, I'm like, okay, from 10 to
Mm-hmm.
2 today, I'm not going to do anything because I need to do this thing. I'm okay, well, this came up and I've got this window of
Mm-hmm.
4 hours, so I can, no, I blocked it off to do something specific. And now I'm allowing something else to take over. And so making sure that we set those boundaries, but honor them
Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves. And if we don't respect them, no one else is going to respect them. And
Yep.
that's something where we have to put those in place, but we're not really taught how to respond
Mm-hmm.
to the way that other people respond
Mm-hmm.
to our boundaries because we think, oh man, they're upset with me. I should take it down or I shouldn't do that because the problem is me versus why are they so upset that I'm setting this boundary? What were they getting from me
Mm-hmm.
before? And maybe it's just control or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but what were they getting from
Mm-hmm.
me that they're upset that they're going to lose now if I have a boundary in place? And we are
Mm-hmm.
not taught how to do any of that or how to feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with that discomfort.
Yeah.
And so people I think start to set boundaries, but then back down from them really quickly because,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, you're stretching my comfort zone and I don't know what to do with that.
Yes, 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 exactly. I talk a lot with my therapy clients, and with my coaching clients because boundaries does come up with that as well, but mainly with the therapy clients. And a lot of times, women, right? There's also this whole gender piece that comes into
Yep.
play and how girls and women were supposed to be accommodating and we can't be strong and we can't have opinions and things like that. So it's a lot of unlearning. And you're right, there is that piece of discomfort. If I do X and that makes Sally feel bad, well, I don't want to have these feelings. I don't want them to have those feelings, et cetera, et cetera. So, well, now how do I fix that? Oh, I don't set that boundary because now there's guilt or regret or shame. Some of those more uncomfortable feelings. There are no bad feelings, but there are definitely feelings that can cause discomfort. And that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that, like, most times we try to avoid, and so we're not familiar with them. And so it's about the work that we do is about how do we try to be more comfortable with them. And you mentioned the comfort zone, and I always talk about this. I use it for myself all the time. I'm just trying to expand my comfort zone. I'm just trying to make that a little bit bigger. And so it's the same thing. How can we expand your comfort zone? You may not like it, but how do we work towards accepting and being able to get comfortable with it and recognize that this feeling, we can hold this feeling and we can also be proud of ourselves for having this boundary and recognize that we don't have to show up to fix like anything. If Sally is feeling XYZ, well, that is something for Sally to work through. Not, we got enough of our own stuff to work on. Let her have ownership of her own feelings.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of work that comes with the boundaries.
Yeah, it's tough. And my experiences have been, yes, it's typically women that
Mm,
are conditioned to play small and to
yeah.
appease others and not make waves. And I'm becoming a big proponent of doing what's right for you, even if it's not what your parents want for
Mhm,
you, if it's not what maybe your spouse wants for you or what society thinks is right for you. Do what makes you feel right and
mhm,
good and whole. And it might
mhm.
be uncomfortable for a little bit to do that if you've been used to putting yourself on the back burner. And if your true self is an a-hole, I'm not saying come out and do that. There might be some reason why boundaries are in place for you. Don't come out and just be a total jerk with whatever. But like if we feel like you're stifling yourself, don't do that because you're gonna
Mhm,
get to an old age or die and you're gonna be like, I never really lived my life for
mhm.
myself. It was for other people and they didn't really enjoy the benefit of that and I just was miserable the whole time. Is a little bit of discomfort for a little while better than a lifetime of discomfort of realizing you're not really living your full potential or your full happiness. And that's
Yeah.
something I think that we don't think about because we're not told to think
Mhm,
about it. But it's on my radar right now, and it's hard to do it, especially if you're a people pleaser and you're somebody who is,
mhm.
used to staying
Mhm.
quiet and staying small and not
Mhm.
wanting to make people uncomfortable, it feels like you are in the wrong for standing your ground and for doing what
Mhm.
you want. And that's a hard lesson to learn, that that's not a bad thing. Like you said, it's
Mhm.
uncomfortable. Sit with
Mhm.
that discomfort for a little bit. And when you get
Mhm.
down to the root of it and think about where it's coming from, it's often not your baggage. It's some kind of
Mhm.
wound, but it's not necessarily yours or caused
Mhm.
by you. And if you're dealing with the feelings of it, that's where like therapy comes into play, or spirituality or whatever works for you to do that inner work and that shadow work. But carrying a lot of stuff that has been passed down to us that isn't our fault necessarily, but we are dealing with the repercussions of it because it does
Mhm.
impact how you live and how you move. And we don't realize that until
Mhm.
you wake up and you're 40 and, oh my gosh, I'm having a midlife crisis. Why am I doing my life the way I'm doing it?
Yeah.
Now I'm
Mhm.
trying to pivot, but it feels weird to
Mhm.
everyone who knew me before 40. They're like, "Who are you?
Mhm.
What are you doing?" And I'm just being myself and I'm happy now
Mhm.
and I feel more free. And they're like, "Well, you're different." But we're supposed to be. We're
Yeah.
supposed to change and grow. And that's uncomfortable too because you start to lose relationships and
Mhm.
people and
Yeah.
situations that were comfortable because when you start to change, you're no longer
Mhm.
comfortable in things that used to be comfortable because you're not the same
Yeah.
person. And I think that's
Mhm.
scary. People hear that and they're like, "Oh, I don't want that." But again, it's a
Mhm.
short-term discomfort for a lifetime or the rest of your lifetime of
Mhm.
being happy and real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also this process of like grief that goes along with that. Grieving what maybe you thought, maybe the past, who you were, and the change that's coming, the relationships that may fall off, because that's a big piece of it too. Absolutely. There's a lot of that like internal work. And like, you know, going back to the values, it's hard. And is it worth it? Right? Is how you want to live your life. Is that worth it? Like, what is important to you? Like, how do you want to be treating yourself? How do you want to be treating others? And if someone who is in your life is not going to like support you through this and be there with you, whether that's a partner or a friend or parent, it's hard. You've got one. You've got one life. That's it. Just one. So,
Man, turned into a heavy podcast. I didn't mean for it to, but it's so important. I just don't think it's talked about. And I say that a
mhm,
lot about things, but because we don't talk
mhm,
about a lot of stuff. We
mhm.
stuff everything under the rug or we roll with it and everyone's just going through that.
Mhm.
Like that's just menopause or that's midlife
Yeah,
crisis or that's and no, it doesn't
yeah.
have to be that way. Why are we settling for this crap? And especially when there are people like you out there doing this work to help people get
Mhm,
through these things. You don't have
mhm,
to go through it alone. And there's community out there, stuff that makes you feel happy. And I know you mentioned Jenna before. Jenna was on the podcast before. I know you are
yeah.
part of the musical trio
Oh, yeah.
and in the different groups that you do, but I feel like that kind of community
Mhm,
is just it's so lovely to
mhm,
hear and talk about and see because I've seen some of the videos and things that y'all post on
mhm,
social media.
mhm.
Everyone looks happy and free and that they're
Yeah,
so light to be there and that looks so
yeah.
amazing. You don't have to go through these things alone. So yes,
Mm-mm.
it might feel heavy and it might feel hard and the people that you're currently with
Mhm,
may not understand it and
mhm.
some of them will grow with you. So that's
Yes.
okay because I again went through this big change and my wife was not on the
Mhm.
same timeline with me, but she's been very supportive and we
Love it.
communicated a lot about it and we're good and we're happy and moving through it. But
Yeah.
some people may not want to grow through that with you and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
right for you. Again, where
Yeah.
you realize what makes me happy, what makes me feel fulfilled. And maybe it's not these
Mhm,
other relationships anymore. Maybe it's not these circumstances. And again, I'm not
mhm.
advocating for anyone to just up and quit your job.
Yeah.
There should be
No.
planning involved. I've been posting recently. I do not recommend it for everybody. And even as a leadership
No.
coach, you are in a toxic environment. I still am not going to tell you to quit unless
Oh,
you
no.
have a plan or a backup or something, some kind of safety net. So this is
Yeah.
not just quit your job and move to Bali and divorce your spouse. I'm not saying any of that. But just think
Mm-mm.
about what it is that really makes you happy. And can you start to have some
Mhm,
conversations about it? Can you start to sit with that
mhm,
discomfort of growth
mhm,
and discuss it? And then reach out to a Laura or somebody to say, hey, I need some
mhm,
support. And everyone around me,
mhm.
everyone thinks I'm crazy. And I know that I'm not. Can we work through
Yeah.
this and get some useful tools? So what other tools and tips do you have for folks? Like what's in your toolkit to help them? You mentioned journaling, but what else can you suggest for folks that maybe just feel like I don't know how to figure this out that you use to help them?
Yeah. So that journaling exercise is a big one. I I'll tell you something that I've talked to my coaching clients about, I've talked to some therapy clients about, and something that I did for myself was the Clifton Strengths Finder.
Yeah, I like
Have
that.
you heard of that? Okay, yeah. That was interesting and it was wildly accurate. So that was really helpful, really figuring out what are my strengths when at that point where I was, I'm gonna burn it all down. And then I was, okay, what do I need to do? That was part of the things that I did. So I've talked with clients, especially those who are in that burnout place and questioning job stuff. Let's look at this and see. Because sometimes it's also, well, I don't even know what I want to do next. So we talk about this piece. We brought it up a little bit, but I had a client tell me vulnerability with a plan. And I
Mhm.
was just like, ah, yeah, vulnerability with a plan feels much more doable. So, like you were saying, like, I'm never going to tell anyone to like up and leave their job. I would never tell anyone that. But, like, how can we do some of this deep work and like, figure out a plan for you along the way? So, I do a lot of like mindfulness work. Being earlier, you mentioned like we kind of work on autopilot, and I think that's so true. And then what ends up happening is that like we find ourselves reacting to things versus like responding to things, where we want to be in a place of like, how do I want to respond to this versus just purely react.
Mhm.
So I do a lot of mindfulness work, and that doesn't necessarily mean I'm sitting and I'm meditating, right? I tell my clients that, especially those that are coming in to work with me. I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be sitting here meditating. There might be some meditations that are part of this, but sometimes it's really taking a breath and checking in with what is it like, what sort of thoughts are showing up, what sort of feelings are showing up in this moment. Really doing a lot of that self awareness piece. So we'll do some mindfulness things. Again, I do a lot of like value stuff. So that is really just kind of like being able to identify and explore values. And we can do that in different ways. But then how do we put this into practice? What does that feel like? And going forward with that, I had a client who was part of a major tech company, and this person really enjoyed being able to like go out and like do things and have experiences and explore. And so how do we lean into that? What do we need to do to like make that happen? And what is that like for you? So we do a lot of that and a lot of mindset work, being able to honor what is showing up, but not fall into this believable, not falling into true or false, but can this thought help me? Even if it's not the best, most positive thought, but can this help me? Can we use that as motivation to make some changes? Because a lot of times, like discomfort avoidance, we tend to shy away. I shouldn't be having these negative thoughts. Well, first of all, we can't control what it is that our mind thinks. So, what are we doing with the stuff that is showing up? And how do we make it workable?
Mhm.
What's the workability here? So, yeah.
I love that. It sounds very
Mm-hmm,
practical and like something that is
mm-hmm,
approachable for most people because I think sometimes if
mm-hmm,
people hear something that sounds a little too out of their comfort zone, they're like, I'm not want to do that. But this, it all sounds very easy
mm-hmm,
to ease into
mm-hmm,
and try. But I think it's really
mm-hmm,
helpful to have those tools to figure these things out so that you're not left to figure them out on
mm-hmm.
your own. Because again, typically we
Yeah.
just aren't taught this stuff. You don't have the tools, you don't have the experience to understand how
Mhm,
to navigate some of this stuff. And it's not a failure on your
mhm,
part. You might need a coach or a therapist or some kind of mentor
mhm.
to talk to help direct you through this because it can feel a little overwhelming when it feels like everything that you're used to is
Yeah.
a little bit of an upheaval that's scary
Mm,
and you can retreat
mhm,
to doing what you have always done, which keeps you
mhm,
where you are and makes no changes, or you can embrace the change.
mhm.
Again, it's very, very okay to ask for help and say, hey, I'm going through this. I would love some guidance on from somebody who has either gone through it or has helped other people go through it. And I think that's really important to know that that's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think that is fantastic. And I want to be mindful of your time. But Laura, if somebody is listening to this and thinking, oh my gosh, this is me, I need to work with Laura, how can they find you? Where can they contact you or just learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah. So, my therapy business, I am licensed in North Carolina and in Maryland. So, if you are in either one of those states, you can go to my website, request a consultation, because, like I said, that phone call thing, not so much. So you can reach out through the website, request the consultation, schedule it. The website is Calm Waters Counseling. And then for my coaching business, you can mainly find me on Instagram. So that is Aspire Coaching and Consulting. And then if you're interested in coming to any of the events, if you are in the Carolinas, we pop up in Charleston, we pop up in Charlotte, we pop up in Wilmington. We'll probably add a few other cities around. We've been thinking about exploring and like doing Raleigh, but I need a connection in Raleigh.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm kind of close to Raleigh. Just throwing that out there.
oh, right. Oh, well, maybe you should come in and experience the band because we've got Jenna on the sound bowls, Sam does the wave drum, and I'm over here on the chimes, like as we're doing our sound event. And we incorporate that into almost every single thing that we do. But the next event that we're having, at least planned, is here in Wilmington, June 21st. And we're doing for wellness business owners, and it's going to be a hands-on marketing workshop, and it's a steal of a deal right now. So you get lots of things for a small price, and we're gonna have a good time. We've got people signed up already. We have a photographer that's going to be there for headshots and everything
Oh,
else. I know, right? It was included in the package deal that you get. So, and it's June at the beach, so you can make it a beach weekend too. Ah,
yeah.
right.
Sign up now. Why are you still waiting?
Right.
Why are you even waiting?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Excellent.
That's what I'm saying.
I asked Jenna to maybe consider that you all should do your music and maybe put it out on YouTube because there are a lot of these Zen musical videos that I listen to sometimes when I'm going to sleep. I would love to hear some
Yeah.
chimes and sound bowls, or maybe on Spotify. So I did put that out there. I don't know if
Right.
she shared that with you, but something to
I'll have
think
to.
about because I do feel like that could be a very successful video.
Hmm. Hmm. I see her at noon. We're having a meeting, so I'm gonna be like, listen, Erica tossed this out. Like, I'm throwing it back in. Could we make this a possibility? Because Sam does YouTube things. So,
There you
like, we could
go.
use Sam's YouTube skills and be like, let's do this.
Yeah, they do this like wrong kind of image on it, and so you don't have to be on camera, but it's just some kind of Zen image, and it's the music, and it plays for however long, and I listen to it, and I'll just have my earbuds in, and I get myself Zen before I fall asleep, or so I could listen to the three
I
of you.
love it.
Just putting it
I
out there.
love
I'm
it.
just bringing it up again.
Okay, okay. We're gonna have to go public then, bigger platform, the band.
Yes. And when you all go big, I want to have my name in was it, they still do CD covers? Like, so
Yeah.
anyway, all of that's not even really related. Sorry, everybody. But Laura, thank you so, so much.
Yeah.
This was, I think, a really important conversation. And you and Jenna both, I genuinely enjoyed you as humans and enjoyed talking to you. And I
Yeah.
felt like I could talk to you all for hours about these things because they are so important. So everybody,
Yeah.
check it out. The event in June, I will post all of the stuff in the show notes if you are interested. And I will catch you all next time on Stumbling Forward.
Yay! Bye.
This episode of Stumbling Forward was brought to you by Ori Ara's Self Care Collective. Real women, real lives, and real self care. It's empowering you to take care of yourself one day at a time. If you are interested in joining the Self Care Collective, there are discount codes on the screen. Stumbling Forward member will get you 20% off your first month's membership, or the Stumbling Forward founder will get you 20% off a lifetime membership.